David Garrett.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Mr Speaker, I don't know about the members on the other side, but I am a resident of the Rodney district and in fact have been in contact with councillors, or I should say they with me, for some time on this whole issue. And I want to correct the record here, Mr Speaker. The statements that the people of Rodney think this or the people of Rodney think that, nothing could be further from the truth. The best you can say, Mr Speaker, is that the people of Rodney are highly divided on this issue. It would be fair to say that there are many, and I'm happy to admit that I'm one of them, who thinks that the best solution would probably be a split between the Kaipara District Council and the Super City. The question, of course, is where that split should be, and I attended Select Committee hearings where there were a number of options considered and put forward. The Northern Railway line that runs past my house was one which would have put me in the Kaipara District. The ridge for the catchment of the Kaipara Harbour, which would have put me in the city. And there was no consensus there, but there was certainly consensus on one thing. Aside from a small number of the Rodney District councillors and a few of their supporters, and we're talking about perhaps a few hundred, Mr Clendon talked about the petition, I think he said 600, did he? 1,000. They'd probably be the total number who wanted a unitary authority. There are 90,000 people, I'm told, in the Rodney District Council, Mr Speaker, and I had a meeting with the Mayor, the former MP, as Mr Hawkins has noted, and she timed it very badly because a few days before the meeting I'd received an email from a woman in Australia who was complaining about the number of MPs we have to run this place. And she said, how is it you need 122 MPs to run New Zealand when the Greater Melbourne Council has 20 councillors and they've got a population of 1.8 million? So when I went to see the Rodney District Council, I made that point, and they were rather sheepish. And then I asked them how many full-time equivalents they had. And I don't want to misrepresent what I heard, but it was in excess of 400. 400 full-time equivalents. I was astounded. And then the Mayor said, well, it's a very wide area, you know, a very wide area. And I said, have you been to Melbourne? Because it takes half a day to get across there by train. So the Rodney District Council has 20-odd councillors, I think, for a population of 90,000. Melbourne manages to manage 1.8 million with the same number. Mr Speaker, that is a perfect example of why this is a very bad idea. I'm not sure if Ms Fenton has actually been past the great castle in Centreway Road, Orewa, the not to be much longer headquarters of the Rodney District Council. It's astounding. It's this huge castle of a building for 90,000 people. Mr Speaker, last year a councillor rang me, gave his name, I won't give it, but he gave me his name and told me that the Rodney Council had budgeted $6 million, this is last year, for new vehicles. $6 million, knowing they were going out of existence in November the following year. Now that's a scandal. That's an absolute scandal of misuse of ratepayers' money, of which I am one. I am a ratepayer in the Rodney District. Mr Speaker, the Rodney District Council was so dysfunctional some years ago that the government had to put commissioners in to run it. I believe they were actually physically attacking each other. So an example of a unitary authority model, you could hardly pick a worse one than the Rodney District Council. Mr Speaker, I'll end as I started by saying that I agree the community is divided. Many, and I'm one of them, think that probably the area should be divided. The area I live in Kaukopakapa, is definitely rural. Doesn't have very much in common with Parnell, in fact, thankfully nothing, which is why I live there. And most of the people around my area would be much happier with the Kaipara District Council. But the crucial thing, Mr Speaker, is we're all going to get a shot in 2013 to make submissions and move the boundary. But in the meantime, you could not pick a worse example of a council to set up as a unitary authority than this one, and any claim that the people of Rodney wish this to happen is simply nonsense. Thank you.